Hello, this is the Generally Bad Gamer again, and today I wanted to record a presentation that I presented earlier in the day to a group of talent development professionals. Now, this presentation, this version of it, will differ from the one I presented to them in that I was comparing how DMing helps develop leadership skills, the same that you would want of somebody in a leadership position in a corporation or in the work environment. I'm not going to do as many of those comparisons for this version of this presentation. Instead, I'm going to use this presentation as more of a way to show people and to tell people about how to DM or how to better DM. So, without any further wait, this is Dungeon Master Traits for Great Leaders, presented by the Generally Bad Gamer, Jolly. Our learning objectives or defining characteristics for this are going to be how DM traits naturally lead to great leadership. That's exactly how I put it during the presentation to the talent development professionals, and I'm going to leave that here because I'm going to discuss different traits that lead to being a good DM and why they lead to being a good DM. I'm going to briefly talk about how building and setting up a riveting and engaging setting will help bring the players in and lead to effective skill building as far as leadership skills are, and how guiding players through that setting also benefits everybody involved in the game. Finally, I'm going to talk a little bit about demonstrating the ability to think outside the box for what you do for the game, and also encouraging your players to think outside the box. With all of these, you should have a pretty good experience DMing, and I, of course, liken this to leadership skills as professional orc here shows. I did give one extra definition to this group, and that's that GMs are in a role playing game, the dungeon or game master is the game organizer and participant in charge of creating the details and challenges of a given adventure while maintaining a realistic continuity, or sorry, not continuity, but also continuity and continuity. Continuity. No, I said it right. Continuity of events. I've already done this presentation once, so I'm a little tired at the moment. But that is what I'm going to talk about in a nutshell. Moving on, these are successful dungeon master traits. And of course, all of these are actually leadership traits that I have pulled, and I'm going to discuss about how they relate to being a good DM. The first is sincere enthusiasm. When the DMs or the DM is sincerely enthusiastic and passionate, that's going to be contagious. I have had many DMs that have been very excited about the content that they are going to have us go through, whether it's pre made content that they bought or content that they have created. Them being excited about it has made me excited about it. Yeah, I just know it's going to be more fun because they're putting effort into it. So, that sincere enthusiasm is one thing that you're going to want as a dungeon master. When you're excited about what your players are going to go up against or what they're going to experience, they are going to get more excited. Now, of course, the second one, communication skills, should be a given. Dungeons and Dragons is a narrative role playing game, so it means it's all about communication skills. But it is also important to remember that you need to listen as part of this communication. So you want to listen to your players, get feedback from them to help increase the joy and immersion of the game. It is great to be able to communicate what you have in mind, but listen to them and incorporate that into future sessions of your game in order to create an astounding, long lasting narrative and impression on these players that's going to make them want to come back each session. Third, I have decisiveness. One thing that's going to happen is your players are sometimes going to do weird things, make horrible decisions, make risky decisions, and you're going to have to think of and decide an outcome that you did not predict. That is the best part about some engaging players and creative players. You, as a DM, while they're willing to take on the risk of making that decision, you have to take on the risk of deciding an outcome or deciding what happens from that decision that they've made. So be decisive of that. Don't drag it out. If you need to look up a couple rules, that's fine. But unless your party is completely hell bent on doing everything rule by rule, make a decision about what happens, tell them why it happens that way, and use the guidelines that you've set forth in the game and what they told you about what they're doing in game to make that decision. Don't drag out something for 10, 15 minutes trying to read up a rule, because that's just going to kill the game for most of your players. Empowerment. You should be empowering your players. We just talked about decisiveness with the fact that your players will make odd, unpredictable, weird, or sometimes horrible decisions in game. That is fine. Empower them to make those decisions. They are more likely to make decisions that are best for the group and in the best interest of the group if you are giving them that empowerment regularly. Most of the time, they are going to appreciate having that ability to make decisions, to guide themselves in the game. And that empowerment is just going to make it more enjoyable for them. And you will be amazed at how far they run with these decision makings as far as improving the game from all points. Vision. The big thing I want to talk about vision is that every DM has a vision of how their game should goes. Don't get too attached to the vision itself. The players will buy into you before they buy into the vision. So be a good DM by incorporating the previous four skills that I have talked about, or the previous four traits I have talked about. Have them buy into you as a good DM, and then that will help them buy into the vision that you have for the game. But at the same time, be feel free to share that vision with them. Let them take part in building that vision or improving upon or extending that vision. With that, delegation is going to be similar to empowerment. For delegation, a great DM, or as I put here, a great leader must elevate their team. It is similar to empowerment. Let them take on parts of the game and projects in the game that they're interested in, whether that's in game or out of game. If they want to look up something out of game that they think would help improve the game and they present it to you, put some serious thought into if that's something that can be incorporated into your game, especially if the players will enjoy that, and especially if that'll add to the narrative of your game. In game, let them make decisions. Even if it throws off things for a little while, that's fine. They're having fun, and eventually they'll come back to the overarching picture or the overarching adventure of the game. So I cannot stress these enough. These are 6 what I would consider essential skills to be a successful dungeon master. Now we're going to continue on because I said we're talking about other things as well. So building a riveting and engaging setting is one of those things. The big thing I want to talk about is I don't have any detailed tips for this, but the biggest thing I can say is build a setting that allows the players to make choices. For example, if your setting involves a singular room, unless the whole session revolves around some weird puzzle where they know they're going to be in a room trying to get out of it, don't confine them to that one area. Part of you building a riveting and engaging setting is allowing that area to grow or having an area of options. So when the DM says you can't go there again, that's very disappointing to the players. In this case, if they're inside the room, if they want to step outside of the room to see what else there is, and you continuously tell them no, they're going to lose interest because there's only so much that they can do with that limited amount of setting or space. And to go along with that, if you expand upon the setting, even something similar to this, you just have a general idea of what you want. It is a big city. Perhaps it's Waterdeep. Perhaps it's a made up city that you created. But when the players ask where can they go or what can I do, give them options. Which district would you like to go to? What shops would you like? Oh, This city is gigantic. It has many armorer shops. Let them have that decision making capability to go different places and try out different things in your setting. It's going to make it more engaging. Don't streamline it for them. Let them figure out a route that they want to take, and you can have those multiple routes eventually lead back to where you want them to go. So it's all about guiding the players at that point. So your players or your team, as I put it in the professional setting when I was presenting this earlier, are trying to get to a goal. And in the game of D&D or any role-playing game, you're trying to enjoy the game. Now, in the way could be obstacles, that could be monsters, combat, diplomacy of some kind. It could be the obstacle could be the fact that you gave them choices. And now you have to guide them back. It can also just be the players don't know where to go or what to do. In either case, what you want to do is guide them with ideas, clues, or even that empowerment. Let them figure out how to get past those obstacles. Let them be creative how to get past those obstacles. If they don't know where to go and they have questions, give them ways to find answers to their questions, because this will inevitably lead them to their goal and they will enjoy it. Provide guidelines and boundaries for your setting or your game. So let them know that there are certain rules and certain boundaries that they have to adhere to, but don't make them too strict. And don't make them too strict in the way that it will completely one path the game for them. That'll make it pretty boring. But let them know there are guidelines and boundaries. Let them know where resources are located. This is both in game and out of game. Out of game, you can let them know about books you're going to use, resources you're going to use. You can let them know that if they find something, they can bring it to you. In game, let them know where they can get information about different topics or different areas of your setting. So that way, if they become curious about something, they know where to visit in game or in that world. Be open to questions and feedback. If they have questions, once again, whether in game or out game, answer those and take feedback. If your players tell you that they unanimously did not enjoy a particular part of a session, and it might hurt your feelings a little bit, it might disappoint you a little bit, but consider at least cutting back on that aspect of the session or get feedback as to why they didn't enjoy it. You might be surprised. You might find out that it was something small that if you did differently, they would enjoy that content that you created and spent time making. And then, of course, support them when they need it. This, once again, is in game and out of game. If they are having troubles finding something to build their character around, offer them suggestions, show them those resources that we talked about earlier. In game, if they're having difficulty finding out where to go or what to do or how to solve a situation, don't leave them stuck in that room that we just saw in the last slide for hours on end and frustrate them. Give them in game clues, give them ways to solve their problems. Now, that's where we come to thinking outside the box. Your biggest advantage is that you have the full support of your entire world in your adventure. So, let the players use that world. You use that world. If they're stuck someplace or if they can't figure something out, you can provide them with the information or a scenario or someplace they can go to get what they need. If they come up with a crazy way to solve a situation, have them explain how they think it would work or why they think it would work. If you don't think it's going to work, you can strongly advise them, but still let them try. Because thinking outside the box for a lot of players and for you as a DM will oftentimes decide whether something is boring or exciting. If you do the same encounter time and time again, that's going to be boring. Level 1, you fight goblins. Level 2, you fight goblins. Level 3, you fight lots of goblins. Eventually, any scenario or encounter that happens time again is going to get boring. Instead, think about how can you challenge them. It could be them as players or them as characters, them as a team, them individually. So think about those outside the box events or encounters that can challenge them. Don't tell them everything they should do. If you are narrating the world for them, You are letting them know what's in that world. But if you're telling them every step they should take, they are typically going to become frustrated or boring or feel like they're not getting a large part of the role playing aspect of the game. So instead, encourage independence and autonomy. If they come to a part in the town or in your world, your lore, whatever, part of the adventure where they want to split up, let them split up. Now, whatever they decide to do, you can keep in mind there will sometimes be consequences. But saying no to every idea that they have is going to lead to, honestly, poor reception on their part, and no one's going to have fun because they're going to stop showing up. However, while you're encouraging creative thinking, follow through with an outcome that's appropriate for what they do. In the real world, when I was talking about this earlier with the talent development specialist, I liken this to an employee has a lot of autonomy at a job, but if they do something outside of those boundaries or the allowances of that job, they get fired. So they are allowed to talk to other people, but if they never do the work because they're spending all their time talking, they get fired. Likewise, in a role playing game, when you're DMing, if they do something that's incredibly impulsive, stupid, or just crazy, their character might die and they might re-roll. So don't be afraid to follow through with those outcomes, but let them take those creative risks. I want to thank everybody for taking a little bit of time to listen to this presentation. As I said, I did modify it some for the nerd community, and I myself am a nerd, that already knows about role playing games, Dungeons and Dragons, and DMing in general. If you have questions, please comment below this video and stay tuned for more content in both gaming, community building, and event organizing from Generally Bad Gamers on YouTube. Thank you very much. And this is the Generally Bad Gamer Jolly out.